Welcome everybody to another episode of Candid Convos. Today's guest is Neil Tyra. Neil, thank you very much for joining us today.
It's my pleasure, Joe. Really, it is.
Neil, there's so much that I want to hear about you, but can you please let our audience know a little bit about you, the lawyer, and even before that, the different careers that you've had over the past years?
Yeah, so I'm an estate planning attorney in Rockville, Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. Law is my fourth career. A lot of people suggest that I don't know what I want to be when I grow up. I originally started cooking for a living in and around the Annapolis area, and then I spent 20 plus years building hardware and software systems for the space industry, mostly for NASA and ultimately for DoD. And all the while I was working in the space industry, I was also a practicing martial artist. And so when I left the IT world, I opened up a commercial martial arts studio to capitalize on the training that I had been doing for years. And so I owned and operated a karate school, the Kenshin Karate School. We taught literally hundreds and hundreds of children, teens, and adults the art of Goju-Ryu karate. And but all along, I had the urge to go to law school, and I had a couple of friends who went to law school late in life, and I thought, well, if they can do it, I can certainly at least try. And I had a couple of kids growing up, and I knew that I had to make, I had to make the money work so that I could go to law school and they could go to school as well. So I had a very short window to try, and I said, well, let me just see if I can get in. And I was lucky enough to get admitted to Catholic University's Columbus School of Law, which is right here in Washington, D.C. And so I sold the martial arts studio that paid for me to go to law school. I graduated in 2004, and I started off doing personal injury work, and then added family law, and ultimately migrated, once my kids grew up and moved away, migrated to estate planning. So that's where I'm now. Estate planning attorney, Rockville, Maryland. We do estate plans for regular folks like you and me.
That is a very impressive career, or a very impressive journey, because when I was reading how you grew up into this world, I was trying to imagine what kind of person you were when you started with cuisine, and the kind of person that you are now today as a lawyer. But mainly also including everything that you've learned throughout your journey. I imagine that martial arts has a very profound and very meaningful significance to you. So I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, in reality, every career that I had has contributed to me being a successful attorney. One of the things I liked about cooking for a living is you knew when you had a good day, right? You knew at the end of the day whether you'd served a lot of people great food, and when you were done, you were done. You were able to go home, and you didn't have to worry about or think about the customers that you served. So from that, I took away the concept that in my law practice, I want to be able to shut down in a certain period of time and devote the remaining hours of the day to the interest that I had ongoing. And so that I wouldn't be thinking about my law practice, 24/7.
The way that you described yourself, that you take law very seriously, but you don't take yourself as serious, I can see that. I can totally see that, because you do come across as very professional, yet at the same time, you come across as a very straightforward person.
Yeah, I think the other thing is that I've never stopped wanting to learn. I've always enjoyed learning. So, I can remember I was on the 11-year program as an undergrad. It took me 11 years to get my undergraduate degree, but that's because I was working the whole time. And I was taking classes at night, And I was in no hurry to get a degree because I was doing well in industry. And so I was able to take whatever I wanted to take, whatever classes I wanted to take. It was only after, 8 or so years that I finally decided, well, I better think about getting a degree here. So I had to figure out which degree made sense. But I was always trying to learn something, even if it wasn't in university setting. I mean, I remember I took Evelyn Wood's speed reading. I took a transcendental meditation class when that was all the big thing back in the 70s. I wanted to learn how to do macrame. I'm always wanted to do and learn something. And so then when the martial arts came along, well, first off, in technology, the the, the rate at which technology was improving and increasing in the 70s, 80s, 90s was just staggering. So there's always something to learn on the technology side. And then on the martial arts side, there was always something to learn. There was an endless supply.
Neil, the thing that brought us together, or one of the things that brings us together, because also besides technology, is you were looking for a virtual assistant to start working with you. And you already have a digital practice, even before the virtual assistant came in. So what's that relationship like?
Yeah, well, so I have my virtual assistant from Get Staffed Up. So I was a client long before I was a guest on this show. Maria is my assistant, and she works from Bogota, Colombia, which is great for me because one, she's in the same time zone as I am. Two, she brings that bilingual experience to the table that can help my practice. Um, it was some people have a difficulty imagining how would I use a virtual assistant, how can I integrate them into my practice. And for a lot of people, that inertia or that hurdle is so great that they don't make the commitment, they don't pull the trigger and hire a virtual assistant, and they suffer as a result: burnout, overwork, stress, all the negative things that go along with that. For me, it was really simple because I was already virtual and everything. I already had the tools. And so it was really not difficult for me to integrate Maria into my practice. I will tell you the process of onboarding her was really important for me because before that, I was a true solo. And so everything was up here. I didn't have anything written down procedurally. I didn't have anything, um, fleshed out in terms of policies or procedures or practices. But in onboarding her, we went through this whole learning process, and we drew it out on a virtual whiteboard. And the process of talking it through and drawing it out on a whiteboard and sharing it with each other and feedback back and forth. She asked questions I hopefully answered, gave me greater insight into my own practice. So not only hiring her took a load of work off of my shoulders, it also helped me define how my practice operates so that the next virtual assistant I bring in, here it is. I got all these pieces in place. Here's the template, here's the policies, here's the procedures, and it's just going to be that much easier. So it's been a win-win-win.
Um, since this person started working with you, I imagine you're not truly alone. Not that you're not a true solo attorney, but now you're no longer truly alone. And I imagine you weren't when you started because you have other service providers. But when it comes to a relationship from offshore, what benefits, if any, do you find having on a personal level after hiring a VA?
Yeah, well, it's very astute observation on your part, Joe, because it was a pleasant surprise to me to find out how rewarding it is to have that daily meeting with a staff member, to get to know them a little bit, the kind of water cooler conversation that one normally has in a physical office space. Now with a virtual assistant, I can share that. I will tell you that she's knocked my socks off a couple of times with her foresight into addressing problems, and that can't make me any happier that somebody is thinking ahead of me, thinking for me, and in my interest and the interest of my practice. So it's a very rewarding relationship. I don't know that Maria knows that as much. I try and convey it to her and let her know. But yeah, it is special. It is something that I was not prepared to experience, and I'm very pleasantly surprised by it.
And I'm very much convinced from the offshore perspective that she's aware. As someone that can bring something to the table from a whole other country with what it would seem at first sight as a different culture and might be some resistance, turns out that there can be a great relationship out there and it can turn over like great results. I'm pretty sure she's aware. And
yeah, I can't sing her praises enough, and I can't sing the praises of working with a company like Get Staffed Up. It's been one of the smartest things that I've done, and I'm very pleased with it. And that I would say that, irrespective of this podcast or irrespective of anything else, if anybody asked me, I would absolutely tell them it's one of the best things I've ever done.
wow, thank you for that comment, Neil. We're very happy that we're able to find people to work with that are exactly like you. They asked me why I admire lawyers. Well, if you hadn't said that I want to help people message like 20 minutes ago, then I had no reason. But yeah, I have plenty. So, Neil, because we're running out of time, there's one final thing that I'd like for people to know. First up, thank you very much for joining us. It was amazing getting to know you, the type of practice that you have, and the evolution of your career. But now, before we go, please let people know where they can find you and what you can do for them.
Great. Well, the easiest thing to do is go to my website, www.tyralawfirm.com. That's TYRA lawfirm.com, all one word. So you get all our information there about the law practice, and I have a pretty robust about me page that people frequently comment on, and of course they're normally commenting on the fact that I include pictures of my wife and my dog on that, but that's besides the point. And then if you want to know anything about the podcast, just search anywhere for The Law Entrepreneur. The hardest part of that is learning how to spell entrepreneur, but if you can get through that hurdle, look for The Law Entrepreneur. We're on Facebook, Twitter. We have our own website. Go to Apple Podcasts or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, and search for Law Entrepreneur, and you'll find us. I'm not hard to find.
Well, guys, you heard it from him. Well, Neil, thanks again, and see you next time for another episode of Candid Convos.